Hey guys, John here from Option Engineer, and in this video I want to cover the trade journal that I'm using currently in Google Sheets, and I've gotten a lot of questions about it from different viewers, and I wanted to go ahead and make a quick video to explain how I use it and also to make it available for you guys, free of charge, of course, just to kind of start tracking your own trades and to see if there's something that we can do to improve it and make ourselves better traders. So in this first tab, my overview section, at the end of each trading day, I go ahead and I fill in a couple of key numbers here. I go ahead and I fill in obviously the date that I'm entering the entry into. I just take the net liquidation value at the end of the day from my portfolio in Tastyworks, easy peasy, and I enter in the buying power reduction, which is shown right next to the net lick value in the trading platform. And recently I've begun entering in the Theta value, which I think is a very good practice because Theta is kind of an option seller's expected daily burn rate or expected daily profit and loss just based on time factor alone. And once I've entered all that in, I'll just go ahead and copy the rest of these formulas over here down to the next row. And what that does is it calculates your percent invested. So how much of your buying power is currently used up which is basically just your buying power reduction divided by your net liquidation value. And this is important because any option seller, you don't want to get over leveraged, and you can easily get over leveraged if you kind of see a good opportunity and don't control yourself. So by having this, and I have a hard stop at 50%, I don't want to have any more than 50% of my account value invested at any given point, and that's just because I'm a newer options trader and I want to take things slow and steady. Next to percent invested, I calculate the Theta return on capital, and this was done from a previous market measure, or I think it might have been Options Jive, but one of the research segments from Tasty Trade, and it's essentially a formula. I'll go ahead and show you this formula here. It looks at the daily Theta value of your portfolio, and it multiplies it by 365 days in the year, and it divides that by the net liquidation value, which basically gives you an expected what your expected portfolio return would be over the course of a year if you kept the same type of portfolio makeup on the entire year. And I divided by 4 because that was what they kind of recommended as a conservative estimate of what you should be able to take home. So I would like to target between 20 and 25% per year return, and this kind of gives me a bar to shoot for. And then to do a couple little small things like daily percent change and year-to-date return. And those values get graphed here on two different graphs. So I want to look at my net liquidation value and my percent invested here on this dual axis graph. And I also want to, further on down here, look at my Theta return on capital and how I've done so far year to date with percent, portfolio percent returns. So that's the overview tab. Over here on the right hand side, I put in a pivot table, and what this does is this shows my current positions that I have on right now, broken out by symbol, obviously, and by different expiration months in case I have positions on in multiple months like I do in this video. And what I want to show, because this is something that I have not found out how to do yet in Tastyworks well yet, is how much risk, how much max loss do I have at any given position at any given time? Especially when you have naked options in there, you don't necessarily know what that margin requirement is of that particular trade. And if there is a way, please let me know in the comments below because I'd love to learn. But this is the best way I found out how to do it, is as I'm placing my trades, which we'll show you on the next tab, whenever I have a new trade going on, I go ahead and put in the max loss or the margin requirement required at trade entry in here. So I can kind of make sure that I'm giving some decent position sizing, some equal position sizing across all the different symbols that I'm trading. All right, so in the next tab, this is where I fill that data in. So what I want to do is whenever I'm placing a trade, be a little more mechanical about it by filling in a couple of items here on the trade log. So obviously I'm going to fill in the underlying, the strategy that I'm using, because I'd like to see over time how different strategies perform. Whether it's opened or closed, that gets filled in automatically. When I place the trade, the expiration date, a couple things that are pretty obvious. Going over here for things that are not quite as obvious. You have an initial credit, but whenever you're rolling and you're managing trades, for example, here in NVIDIA and in IYR, I these were credit spreads that I ended up having to sell the opposite credit spread. I won't go into the detail of it, but I made some adjustments to the trade, and I want to be able to better track the credits I receive whenever I roll or adjust a position. So, for example, here I got a credit for a 0.23 additional on it, and if I were to continue to roll, let's say I rolled it out in time, I would want to go ahead and say, let's say I rolled it out in time for another 50 cents. Continue to track the amount of credit that I've taken on any given position, because what that does is I want to have a better view of what my expected profit and loss is going to be based on my total credit received. So one thing that Tasty Trade teaches is that if I go in, let's say, for example, so I've got the ability to select different profit targets, but if I have a profit target of 50% here, and my initial credit was $97 when I received it, I would expect to take away $49 or so at the end of that trade at that profit target level. But what happens as you start to roll and adjust your positions, as we did over here? Does that impact your expected credit received? And their answer, which I agree with, is no. You should keep your rolls separate because that's all defense you're playing, but your expected profit is still that 49 cents. So by tracking it this way, I can make sure that I'm still targeting my original profit target. But even if I continue to roll, what this does in this trade journal is it adjusts my price. This is now my targeted price that I want to close at. So if the credit goes up again by another $1, I'm still expecting to bring 49 cents out of this trade, but my closing price now has gone up. So I would expect to close this at a higher debit at the end of the day than when I first opened it. And so that should make sense kind of intuitively. And then the last column I'll kind of talk about here is the stop loss price. More studies have been done where they say if you get 2 times your initial credit received, or if you get stopped out at 200% loss on the trade, and what this does is just tracks what that price is at any given point. So that one's pretty self-explanatory, and you can adjust these as you want. I have, for example, a 3 times multiplier on it. You can make your own stop loss limits if you choose to use that, but having this is helpful for me as trades get more complicated and longer in duration. And then a simple comments area whenever I want to make a change to a position, I'll update that. And when you actually do close out positions, so for example, let's ignore this because this is not true. If I, right now this EEM Ironfly is open, but if I go ahead and put in, let's say, a closing date of today, and then I close it out for 50 cents, it'll calculate your profit and loss and the profit and loss percentage of your max credit received. And what it'll also do is it'll switch the status over to closed, so that in your overview tab, if you're looking back over it, EEM should not show up on this chart here. So then just to make sure it's working correctly, take it off, and now you got your EEM position. So here you have a better way of looking at your overall investments and where your risk is at. So that's that. If you guys want to use this or play around with it, or at least use it as an idea generator, go to my website, optionengineer.com, and there will be a sign up link there where I will send you the link by an email so you can use it and play with it. So that's it, guys, for tonight. Hope you guys enjoy it, and happy trading.